What's up, guys? I think you're going to like this podcast. It's a little bit different than I normally would do. We have a group of people on the show, but we're talking with Mitchell F. Chan. And if you're unfamiliar with Mitchell, I've interviewed him before on my podcast. He's very important in the historical NFT space. I've linked everything down below so you can get caught up if you haven't listened to that podcast or you want to know a little bit more about Mitchell. He's got an art series coming out called Beggar's Belief. And we are exploring in this show the first piece of art in that series. And I think you're going to enjoy it. We wanted to do it with a group of people because Mitchell kind of wanted to have instant reactions to see how we all kind of perceive the art as we're actually exploring it. So I think you're going to like it. And I know you're going to love Mitchell. He's an incredible, incredible person. So enjoy my podcast with Mitchell F. Chan. Number 2. Yeah, we're joined by Mitchell Chan. Super psyched to have you here, man, to introduce this new work that you're presenting. If you want to just tell us a little bit about it, a little bit about the gallery where it's going to be shown and stuff, give us a little bit of the backstory. I think that'd be a good place to start.
Sure. So a little bit of background on the project and about where it is going to launch. So this project, like really the framework of this was something that I conceived of a couple of years ago. Right at the beginning of the pandemic, I saw how galleries were trying to pivot to online. And like, I'm going to put like that word pivot in like the world's biggest like air quotes, you know, and they were making just these terrible experiences, right? And none of them were leveraging like what you can do when you put a viewer in a digital space. And the fact that physical artworks, like they don't work, like their digital representations are just not as good as actual artworks that were supposed to be seen as fleshy, visceral paint on canvas, right? You know, and at the same time, I'm an art and technology guy. I work with code, I work with technology, and I'm really interested in virtual experiences. I'm really interested in, to use a little personal buzzword, immaterial experiences, right? And I just believe that I can create these whole artistic worlds, you know, inside digital space. This is not that's not a revolutionary idea. Like we all know this is true, right? But I also just think that like I want this to be my thing. Like I want this to be like sort of my life's work. So I started conceiving these artworks that would exist inside of video games, or these artworks that would be video games, you know, and then, you know, NFTs happen. And this is just further proof of concept that like there is an audience for art, and that audience is on digital platforms, right? Like, and we're ready for art that is native to that kind of experience. So this is all just lining up. I'm like, this is it. Like my artwork now needs to be like immersive digital experiences. And we're really fortunate. Like I said, this whole thing started off with me like griping about, you know, most museums' approach to, you know, putting art in digital spaces and stuff like that. But we're lucky. There are a handful of curators and museums who have been really on this stuff for a long time. You know, they were on this thing, you know, before NFTs, and they continue to be on it. And so earlier in the year, the curator, Tina Rivers Ryan of the Albright-Knox Museum, told me that she wanted to curate an NFT show, and that this would be, you know, the first survey of blockchain art by a major American museum. And these would be new commissions for pieces, and they would all be, you know, presented as NFTs. I was like, yes, please. And the theme of the show was to create work that, you know, responds to work that was already in the museum's collection. And, you know, I'd already had this whole series kind of mapped out in my head, right? The whole overall project is called Beggar's Belief. And that's the name for the overall series of all the artworks that I'll make that take this approach to, you know, video games as art. And, you know, I said, okay, yeah, I think I can do this, and I can make it a part of my series. So I looked through the Albright-Knox collection, and the piece that stood out to me that I really wanted to respond to was, you know, people probably thought I was going to do some like really hoity-toity, like a conceptual, you know, art piece, you know, like I'd respond to a Solowit or an Yves Klein, you know, which they have. And I was like, no, I want to do this painting. It's from 1865. And it's like a little bit like kind of, and it's like a little bit cheesy. And, you know, it's by the American painter Winslow Homer, and it's called The Croquet Players. And it depicts, you know, people playing croquet in 1865. And like, this is a depiction of a game. And I believe that, you know, a game can, you know, be a metaphor for, you know, other systems and structures that exist in our lives. And it would make sense for me to take this painting of a game and make it into an actual game, because, you know, that's what art can do now, right? And so that's how we end up where we're at, and that's the show. So the show is, this work is going to be released in the museum exhibition peer-to-peer, which will be online on Feral File on November 21st. And
what about the Croquet Players like caught your interest? I mean, is it well, actually, my first question, like, what's Beggar's Belief? What is this? Or is this what we're supposed to interpret through the art?
Sure.
How'd you come up with that name?
The name, the Beggar's Belief is the name that I've given to the entire like body of work, right? And I've structured all my artworks and my release schedule this way. It's kind of an act of self-curation, right? It's just like, all of these artworks I'm going to make, of which this piece that we're going to play today for the first time, this is the very first installment in that series of artworks, okay? But it's a way of sort of putting all these artworks under an umbrella to just let viewers know, because one thing, like, we don't have, I think, still a great culture of curation in the space. So as an artist, I have to take responsibility for that and say, no, these works are intended to be like seen together as like one body of work, and all these works will sort of expand on the themes and ideas of each other.
But beggars?
Beggar's Belief is, so I'll tell you, actually, it's great. I'm so happy you're asking me why I titled the overall series of artworks this way. It's actually inspired by a contemporary artist named Andrea Fraser. And Andrea Fraser observed and wrote something along the lines of the main product that the art world produces is belief. Okay, it's not art. It's, you know, belief in the stories that we're telling, belief in the legitimacies of the artist, belief in the legitimacy of the institutions. Yeah, that's awesome. What we produce. And I've always found that quote to be particularly, like, it is a quote that is about art, but it has an amazing parallel in crypto, because that's what we're buying and selling as well in crypto, right? Bitcoin, when you buy and sell on a Bitcoin, it has value. Its value is entirely dependent on the amount of belief that these coins, that these tokens can instill in us. So it's just one way that I find these worlds to be in parallel. So I called the entire situation Beggar's Belief, because it's, you know, a turn of phrase. And because, you know, at some point, you know, we all might be very poor.
especially today.
Yeah, especially today. To put this in context, there's been some crazy stuff in the crypto realm over the last 2 days, but it's the idea of shared beliefs is so powerful, and most people don't really recognize it. I think for me, the first time I ever really connected with it was there's that book Sapiens, right, which kind of laid out this, like, the strength and the power of humans is our ability to share belief systems, right, across cultures and around the globe, right? The idea of shared democracy, freedom, personal liberty, all these things are literally shared beliefs that we've created ourselves, right? It's not, we weren't imbued with these by nature. We created these belief systems, these structures, and all of us believing them together is what gives them the power. And this is, it's incredible. And
absolutely.
It's highlighted in crypto. Absolutely.
Yeah. And things like tokens and artworks, they're like these receptacles that we can put that belief in, right? To make it portable, right? To make it something that people can congregate around, to give it just a little bit more form, make it a little bit less abstract.
Yep. Well, I love the croquet. It's like, this is the ultimate, I don't know. It's almost the ultimate, like, hoity-toity rich people kind of, I'm using air quotes, sport. I guess it's more of a game than a sport, right?
Yeah.
But that's the feeling I get from it. When I think of croquet, I think of, like, oh my God, this is like, I don't know, The Great Gatsby or something, right? Playing on the back lawn.
Yeah. What's like putt-putt?
Yeah, I think so. Right. But so this is really interesting, right? So I was like, so I decided that the first 5 artworks that I make in Beggar's Belief are going to be about sports, because that way I'm making games about games, and I'm talking about, oh, there you go, Leo's playing with it.
There
Leo's
we
got it
are.
open. All right. And so this is the artwork, right? And it had been existing just as sort of like this digital painting in that frame for a while, and then all of a sudden you move the mouse around in the window, and it's this like this whole game. It's a game about, a painting of a game.
And down the rabbit hole we go.
And down the rabbit hole we go. But this is really interesting, right? Because in the context of this game, this whole game, it takes place in 1865. And specifically, right, this painting that inspired, this NFT artwork, it was painted by this painter, Homer Winslow, who had just sort of made his name as a painter of scenes from the American Civil War. That was actually his job. He worked for Harper's Magazine, and he, did visual reporting on it in the form of paintings. The war ends, and this is one of the, first paintings that he makes right after that's over. And it's like conspicuously like not political at all. He's just like, all right, F that, like I'm out of there. I would just like to make this painting of some rich people playing croquet, right? And like that's conspicuous. Like when you represent a game, like are you totally, depoliticizing your artwork? Are you trying to make something that is sort of sterile? Or, do politics and the historical context of the moment seep into that picture? Do they seep into the game?
It's interesting. Mitchell, I had a question.
Yeah.
So last time we talked, you mentioned that you began your art career in 2006, and then you began your NFT art career in 2017 with conceptual art. Mm-hmm. Then your next project was generative art and the tokenization. Mm-hmm. So what is this? I know you tend to push boundaries. You like to introduce philosophical ideas into your art. It looks like a game, but it's not your traditional gaming NFT, which people are generally used to, like a Sandbox or Decentraland. This seems like a combination, but how would you describe this in the form of tokenization?
Great question. So let's stick on that whole, like, it's not a gaming NFT thing. And like, yeah, this is not blockchain gaming. Okay, this is not blockchain gaming as we're talking about it. In the sense, like, this isn't like, I'm not asking you to like deposit tokens and then like you like
There's
kill
no
a
play
blob
to earn.
and
If I get really good at croquet, I can.
Yeah, like it's not play to earn. It is not an ecosystem at all, right? This is an artwork. It's a visual artwork. It's also not a video game in the sense that, like, look, it's not Halo. Okay, anybody who logs on, anybody who expects my art to be Halo. Nothing against Halo. I love video games. I'm one person. I'm not going to be able to make Halo. No, look, this is just an artwork, but it is an artwork that looks and feels a lot like a video game. And to me, that is just normal. That is what I feel like art should. There should probably be more art that looks and feels like that. And it's like this. It was just like, 100 years ago, Marcel Duchamp said, you know what? I think that if there was some art that looked and felt a lot like ordinary, everyday, ready-made objects, that would probably be a pretty smart thing, because, it will tell us something about art and the society that we live in. And then, Andy Warhol might say, you know what? I think maybe there's some art that should look or feel a lot like advertising illustrations. And, that would be a very smart commentary on the culture that we live in today. And so I just feel like art can look and feel a lot like video games. And I think that that is a smart way of engaging the culture that we live in today. So it is just an artwork. It just happens that, it's an artwork that when you pick up that mouse and you click it, holy crap, like this whole thing plays out like a game. Two reasons for that. One is like, we're making art for digital space right now. Okay, so take advantage of it. You don't have to make static images. You don't have to make anything flat. All right. And then the second thing is that, you know, if you're making art that reflects the world we live in now, we have the most gamified existence. It blows my mind. Okay. You can have a job as an Uber driver where you look at your heads up display and it gives you quests and then you get money for finishing the quests. No, I mean, that is just like the life that we live. So it is this perfect meeting of, you know, subject matter. All right. The gamified world that we live in and you know, a medium, which is like, you know, the kinds of formats, kind of digital media that we can use to create art today. So yeah, is it blockchain gaming? No, it's just an artwork. It's just some artwork that does some stuff that is right now, I think, uncommon to see, and that I do really hope like pushes this whole field forward.
Wow.
It's interesting. I was just, it just occurred to me, like, yeah, you chose like gaming because obviously gaming is a huge part of society today. But then you went back to like this game, which is so like antiquated and not part of society today. Right? And did that kind of like very, yes, it's gaming, it's online, it's I can interact with it, my computer screen, whatever. But then it's the oldest game, you know, like,
I mean, it's a pretty old game. Well, you know, Adam, it was a wise person. I'm not sure who said this. They've probably long since passed, who said that, you know, for a brighter future, we must understand our past. Heck of a tagline. Heck of a tagline. Heck of a sales pitch.
I've seen that somewhere.
But you know, like this is true. Like one of the best ways, and you know, this is like a thing that I've done a lot. I'm trying to get out of this habit, but it's a thing that I do a lot, right? Is, you know, you comment on stuff that is happening today that is difficult to understand by drawing parallels to stuff that happened in the past that we do understand, because we've had 100 or 50 or 150 years to process it. One of the things that this artwork is about, it's about the tools and mechanisms through which games and boundaries can exclude or include certain people. All right. And we know this is true even in some of the real world scenarios that I've talked about. You can play the Uber driver game, right? You know, if you know, have a car and a phone and like some real time. We can play the crypto game, right? But for all of the democratization of, you know, finance that we talk about in crypto, we understand that there are still like real, you know, barriers to entry to do this, right? You know, it requires a certain degree of tech savviness. It requires, you know, access to the tools and resources that you need to even get tech savvy. The other thing that we all know about games, and I'll stay on the metaphor of the crypto game for a while. As we've seen this week, we're recording this like right in the middle of like the FTX, you know, firestorm. You know, you can be in the game, but you're not really in the game. You know, like we're in the game, but there's this whole other level of game, right, that is being played up here. And sometimes there's this illusion of democratization that happens when the game is ostensibly open for all. But no. That's a ruse, man. That's a ruse, right? Like there's whale games being played up there. We know this, right?
Yep.
But they can sell us this myth that everything's open. But games have always been like that, right? Games have always been like that. And so one of the things that's interesting, I looked at croquet in the 1860s. It was really, really popular in this moment because it was one of the first games that women were invited to play. All right, so you could go have a nice afternoon on the lawn and, you know, hubba, you know, maybe you know, interact with some females, which was a real novelty at the time, right? And there's this way that you can look at that as a step forward for gender equality. But it's like, look, man, we know that inviting someone into the game, like, it doesn't mean that you're inviting them into the bigger game. So this whole artwork is really about, okay, all these people are on the playing field together, but like, who's really playing what game and who's invited?
All right, I'm picking the guy character.
Well, that's the thing. You can't, right? In this,
can you pick the guy? Well, open it up, Leo. Let's see. So
yeah, let's do it.
So
if you're listening to this rather than watching the video, Leonidas
Before we
is gonna
dive
open
into
up.
this, I do just want to give context for people. Like when we have Mitch on here, this is his third crypto art piece, his third collection. You know, the first one obviously released over 5 years ago now. He was extremely early. We're not going to dig too much into those older collections, but when Mitchell says something like gaming as art, you know, this very much makes me think back to 2017, where he's talking about blockchain as art. And yeah, like this dude is super early. He is thinking about how things are going to be, not necessarily today or tomorrow, but like 5-10 years down the road. So I think he's truly a visionary, creating this for the future mediums, the metaverses that we're in, the VR headsets. Like he's not building this for the 2D screens that we're on today. I can already tell by clicking around just slightly here. He's creating for the medium of tomorrow, which I imagine he's extremely early on. I can totally see a world in 10 years where it's very weird to not create 3D pieces that are immersive in the metaverse. I can imagine that would be something that, I don't know. I wouldn't bet against Mitchell F. Chan. So I imagine there's some sort of trend or something interesting here. And I'm sure people are going to pay attention to that. So I just wanted to give that little bit of background there. I'm also super excited, Mitchell. We're all super honored that you chose us to be here to demo this with you. We have Receipt Burner, who was literally someone who collected your first piece back in 2017. Super excited that you're here, Receipt. This is an honor.
Yeah, very excited as well. Very, very excited. I love Mitchell's work, and this looks like it's going to be absolutely great. Just as we jump in, I have a question. Hopefully I don't derail too much. I remember that you tweeted a while back about liking a game, Kentucky Route Zero. And it feels like, and I know there's going to be some things that happen down the line here. It feels like maybe there's some DNA from there, or like a little bit of ideas from there that kind of influence this. So yeah, wondering if that's an influence here, and then sort of on both the visual element, but also on the narrative design, which we'll get into that once we get to the game, I think.
Big time, big time. I am never shy about showing, my inspirations. I think that, like, there has been, artists who have used video games as their medium. And I think that the best example of that was Kentucky Route Zero by the developers Cardboard Computer. And that was a series, and look, even structurally, that I took some cues from, like that was released in 5 episodes over the course of like 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it was just 3 people. Like it was just 3 people. And they made this thing that I believe over those 5 episodes is honestly one of the greatest artworks that has been produced in my lifetime. Like it is that good. It is emotional, it is smart, it is political, it is visually gorgeous, it is sonically gorgeous. It's a fantastic piece of art. And it's one of the very few artworks that I think has properly like leveraged video game mechanics and that technology. So yeah, that was a big inspiration for me. Those guys actually who made that game, they were graduates of the Art Institute of Chicago, as was I. I'm also an alumnus there. And they graduated like, I think the year before I got there. So I never like really, I met one of the guys one time at a party, which I'm sure he wouldn't remember, but yeah, sadly, like I haven't had that much interaction with them, but they're a huge influence.
Cool.
Let's play putt-putt.
Let's play.
Yeah,
Let's jump in. Yeah.
I'm ready to start this, guys. So it's really cool. Like I'm seeing that it's actually playable inside of OpenSea. For the full experience, I'm gonna like click into the full screen version of it here. But this is actually, it's honestly just kind of I don't know. It's like very novel. It's very interesting that you can play it inside the OpenSea window. That's just like, to me, that's kind of cool.
Mitchell, how's the gallery gonna show this?
So this is an online, right? This is an online exhibition. It's going to be hosted on Ferrophile on November 21st. We are having an IRL exhibit in Miami during Art Basel. And there's, I think for every like physical, typically like when a museum presents a work in a physical space, they will, if possible, try to work with the artist to respond to the physical conditions of it. I would imagine that I'll give them a media player with a standalone app to put, on like a digital frame. And, they just have a mouse input in front of it. And I feel like that's probably what's going to work best for a physical exhibition. But, we'll see, like still learning.
I think when at the recent historical NFT fest in Barcelona, a guy, God, I'm spacing his name right now, but he's done a bunch of displays and art exhibits with digital items. And he said, my number one piece of advice for displaying digital art in a physical space is to put a frame around the screen.
Yeah.
He's like, you can't imagine how much of a difference that makes rather than just having a screen on a wall, but putting a frame around that screen. He says, I don't know how you feel about that. It's kind of funny because, the reality is this is not necessarily meant to be, it's meant to be kind of an experiential thing. It's different than, seeing something on a wall.
Well, Adam, no spoilers, but the artwork itself may contain a commentary on that idea.
Oh, wow. That's
yeah.
Well, I'm going to jump in here, guys.
Yeah.
So let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it and tell the listeners what you're seeing.
Okay, awesome. So I just got dropped on this home screen. I can't help but feel okay. So yeah, we're dropped into, clearly it's a 3D virtual space that you've created. I assume you use some software to create this space. Mitch, was this like Unity or?
Yeah, it's all made in Unity.
Very cool.
I was just going to say, when you had done I guess it was you were playing around with this, I guess, what was it, like 5 or 6 months ago, where you did this other one where it was like buying a car, right? Was that simply experimenting, or is that maybe you can tease like?
Yeah. 6 months ago in the summer, right? I demoed, right? I made a demo. I called it just the Beggar's Belief demo. And it was mainly intended to be a tech demo where I was just playing around with the Unity engine, trying to develop my own aesthetic style that I would bring to bear on the entire series. And then just put that tech demo inside like a little interactive experience, a game-like experience, that would be a fun little commentary on the crypto space at the time. And at that time, we were in the middle of a different kind of CEX scandal or something like that. But that was always just, I just wanted to show collectors in the space like what I was up to, because it's been 1.5 years now since I've released new art into the market. Right. And it's not because I'm lazy, man. I've been working my butt off on this thing. But it's because like I only want to put out really quality stuff. I want it to be a big deal when I do put stuff onto the market, and not just something that I do every 6 weeks, when I got to pay my bills. But I did want to put out that demo to show people what I was up to, let them know I was working on something big.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else on this call had a chance to play around with it, but it was fun. I think I took it to its full conclusion. I basically, unless there was some hidden item in there, I went through every little thing and billboards and all this sort of stuff. It was real fun. It was awesome. So, so Leo's learning the controls basically. Now, I didn't see where you could actually pick the player.
No, you can't. You can't. Okay. You can't. You're always playing as the 2 female characters.
That's Leo. That's what I thought when I tried it out earlier.
So I'm clicking and holding the ball, dragging backward. This is controlling direction and power, and then releasing to shoot.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And the idea is to put it through the loop in the ground.
So, yeah.
So wait, you've never played croquet before?
Kind of like
in a past life, maybe.
Yeah. So you can skip through this, and I can tell you because you got the ultimate tutorial right here, which is me in your ear. But yeah, it's just showing you that you're gonna run through it's a croquet game. You run through the wickets in order. And by clicking and dragging, and there you are, and there you go. Oh, put on the sound for a second, because there's the soundtrack.
Oh, I like this. It's a very peaceful. I feel like this is a peaceful environment. I'm relaxed right now. Interestingly,
So if you put the cursor on the croquet mallet,
Yeah. Pull it back.
push it,
Let's
and
see.
then hold it and pull it back, and you'll see an
I
arrow.
All right,
see.
Leo, let's
Trust
see
me,
your
you're going to need a
skills.
long arrow. You're
Yeah,
going to
More
need
power,
90s
less power.
billiards.
I'd
More,
say
more,
that's
more
a little bit more.
way more, dude. Yeah.
All right. And okay.
All right.
Yeah, let's
And
give it a
then you just
shot.
Release.
Thought I saw Susanna coming down.
Oh,
Really good.
just short, just
Right.
short.
So these are
Okay.
NPCs playing now. Oh, and they're taking you to school. They're taking you to school. So that's 1-0 to the boys.
That is a tough shot right there, guys.
Yeah,
This is like
yeah,
impossible.
this is tough.
Yeah.
So you
I
may
mean,
want to
I
think
just, like,
strategically.
You
Okay,
do,
I'm-
like
I'm-
lay it up. You lay it in front, I think.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna tee myself. I'm gonna tee myself up with a light little thing, kind
Yep.
of put it like
Yeah,
right
like that.
front there. Yeah.
There you
Ooh,
go.
Set
There you
yourself
go.
up
Great
right
shot.
Next
there,
one, there you go.
right in line.
And you can zoom the camera around on your turn. Yeah, look at that. He couldn't make that
Oof.
shot either.
Okay.
Oh,
These guys are
ooh.
pros. We got Tiger
So
Woods
now
out
you
here
can
in the
put hers.
1800s.
You can put that one through, right? You
Yeah.
can tap that one through and follow with your ball too, right? Because that's your own player.
Yeah.
So wait, can you explain that for me?
So it's like pool, right?
Mhm.
Where you can knock the other ball in with your ball, which you want
Ah.
to do in this case because that other ball is your teammate's ball. So
You might be overestimating my skill set here, Adam.
You never
hit the
played
ball in
those
front of the wicket and try to hit the
90s
ball through.
flash.
That would
Yeah.
be ideal.
I
90s
would
flash billiards.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, so there you go. You can rotate the camera around, zoom, pan in and out and everything. And yeah, man, I feel like we need like a proper like sports commentary, like Leo hunches
Oh, he
over the
leans
ball,
back.
playing is red. It's a long but straight shot.
Oh,
he
oh,
put-
great
oh!
shot.
Just short.
He's been intercepted by his own ball.
Mitchell, I'm looking at the top of the screen, and there's a bar, like a bar meter, and it's
Yes.
yellow, and right underneath it's a $ BBSC, 175, and the meter is about 20% full. What is this?
Well, that's very observant, Jake. And that is one of the sort of underexplained, mysteries that I've put into the game. And it's the one element of this game that I think will connect to like the next artworks that I make, which is that they'll all sort of make reference to that currency. And sure, I mean, I'll just talk about it. I don't want to be like evasive about it, but as we go through here, if Leo ever hits a shot, he's going to
Go ahead,
unlock
dude.
some.
You can keep playing as we're talking, man. Go ahead.
Keep going. And if Leo ever hits a shot, he's going to start unlocking some dialogue, right? And the dialogue really talks about different types of, well, it's like I was saying before, it's like the different types of games that people are actually playing here and what levels people are playing at. And so one of the reasons why you would want to be invited into this croquet club and be on the lawn with these people in top hats and suits is to accumulate social capital, right? We understand this is why people play golf, right? It's one of the big reasons why people play games together, right? It's this sort of empty thing around which you can congregate with other people to expand your sort of influence. So that bar that you're seeing is sort of a measure of, oh, nice.
Oh, wicket
Leo.
run.
There we go.
Nice
Who's marrying Yvette?
shot.
Leo just hit
Yeah.
like this bomb, like
increased.
30-foot bomb.
Yeah, just dinged it in off the corner.
Yeah, and now the social capital's gone from 175 to 220 after
Yeah.
the first shot.
Yeah.
So you just start with social capital. Is there some meaning behind that?
Well, you start with a small amount, right? You start with a small amount.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And so now Leo's brought up, this is the sort of the next, another layer of the artwork, right? Which is that there's this dialogue going on. And Leo is looking from this, right? He's got this long zoom lens looking at the two men lining up their next shot, and they're having this conversation. And as you play, Leo, more and more of this conversation will unravel.
And
Gotcha.
one thing I don't know, Leo, if you want to pan around to the hill.
Are you talking
See,
about those prisoners? Because when Jake
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
But he saw it.
Right. So, I mean, you can I do whatever you want with this dialogue for now. You don't have control of the camera during the cutscenes. And
okay.
I think we're not going to go and read all the dialogue for
Okay.
people probably, but just it's another layer.
Gotcha.
So to give a little context, on the hillside next to the playing field, there's a handful of what looks to be prisoners, a chain gang of prisoners on the hillside. And I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I'd love to speak to that, right? So there is, so this is another, it's another layer of the artwork, right? We have this game that we're playing, and this game is like a metaphor for whatever. There's this dialogue that's happening that's telling us another story that's layered over top of it. And right now, Leo has, tilted his camera around. He's got it lined up perfectly that he can see just behind the field of play. There's a group of prison laborers, and they're digging a ditch, right? They're digging a ditch through a hillside. And this is, first of all, a way to contextualize where this game is situated in history, right? This is 1865. The Civil War has just ended. Slavery is no longer legal. So congratulations, everybody is now included in, the citizenship of the United States. Everybody's, has the same rights ostensibly, right? But of course, no, what happens is you make sort of different systems. You make different systems to make sure that you're enforcing sort of different tiers of, of American citizenship, really. And, after slavery, right, the penal system became a way to sort of segregate African American people, right? They were dramatically overrepresented. And so, you couldn't get free labor through slavery, but you would have prisoners doing a lot of labor. And wow, what a coincidence. It just so happened that you would, stuff your prisons full of African Americans. And so again, it's another way of saying talking about who's included and who's excluded from certain, structures, systems, games, and stuff like that. And of course, these people are just on the outside of the playing field.
And I'm noticing the playing field is basically surrounded by a wall, maybe you want to call it, of gold.
Yeah, well, you can kind of, so you can, I love that, what you're doing right now is Leo's zooming around and panning around. And Leo, if you scroll with the mouse, you can zoom out, right? And this is where we should start to put a spoiler warning.
Oh, look at that.
Right?
Look at that.
Look at that.
So spoiler alert, and you can fast forward if you don't want sort of all of the layers and messages of the artwork kind of revealed to you, because I think it's really fun that they trickle out through the experience of playing this game. And by the way,
picture frame.
Yeah, exactly. This entire game, the entire croquet field is placed inside a gold picture frame that sort of keeps these wealthy people sort of separated from that penal colony out there, right? From the sort of untamed hillside out there. And one of the things, right? So that's a motif. You're asking, hey, should artwork have frames around it? Does it matter? Whatever, right? Should these look, man, a croquet club is literally like a gated community, right? Sure. You put this frame around it and you declare that everything that's inside is refined and cultured and important, right? That's what a frame does. A frame says that it's a way of signifying everything inside this frame is really important and really smart and really refined, and everything that's outside of this frame is not that. And it's an open question as to whether that boundary is permeable or not. But that's sort of the imagery that we're getting in here. And the mechanic that I love in terms of how Leo panned past the laborers in the background, maybe before noticing them, could play this game for 20 minutes without noticing that gilded frame.
Yeah.
Is that it's a lot of the ideas in this artwork are not in your face. All right. You don't make an open interactive experience for people to sit them down in a chair and lecture them about a bunch of stuff. Right. You do it so that they can have the thrill of discovering this stuff on their own and at their own pace. And so I really use, my camera angles to set that up to make sure that I'm trickling out those ideas instead of throwing them at people in this big info dump that feels like a lecture. It's just it's the storytelling potential of the medium.
You're telling a story here, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're peeling back the layers. Obviously, we've seen a few different aspects of this now. I think it's kind of cool that these people inside it's not even apparent that you are in a picture frame. Maybe their whole world to them, right? It's interesting.
Yep.
And I'm sure as we get into it, because of playing the demo months ago, I'm assuming there'll be a little bit of the choose your own adventure style of storytelling. Do we get
in this game, as the dialogue goes on, Leo already had one sort of dialogue branch option. It's not like there's not like extreme branching, but some dialogue choices do have impacts in terms of where later dialogue starts. Overall, everything sticks pretty close to a script because, I had specific things that I want to say in that layer of the artwork, and the narrative layer of the artwork. I did as an artist had a specific message, so I wanted to make sure I got to that. But there are a couple of slightly different paths you can take to get there.
See, there's a lot of fun things in here, like I'm interested in, and I don't want to know the answer to because I'd like to play it more. And like for the first thing that popped in my mind was, can the women win this game? Because
they can.
They can. Okay.
But then the question is, what game, right? Can they win the croquet game? Can they win the croquet game?
I played for about 5 minutes. I didn't get too deep in it because I wanted to see it fresh while we were talking here. But I hit some, and my shots were wildly inaccurate. And the guys are like shooting bombs from 40 feet away, and I'm like, oh, the women are never gonna. I can't win. This
Adam,
game.
you're just
like, I have to practice forever to win.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm still like I'm not a particularly experienced game developer. So balance is something that I'm still developing. How difficult should it be? But I think that it's like, I think that with by a few playthroughs, I had a handful of beta testers. By a few playthroughs, people were basically able to win, which is good because I want people to be able to experience the artwork in its entirety. But it's funny, like that brings up the idea of replayability, right? And like what that means in a game versus like what that means like in an artwork, right? And I really wanted this game to be like, I really wanted this artwork to be, as a game, a little snippet. Like it can be a 10-15 minute game, all right? Yeah. And that's fine. But then, as an artwork, have all these levels of depth, right? When you think about a painting, it takes, it takes, a second, a couple of seconds to take in the like entirety of, of a painting, right? And then you can spend years and years and years like ruminating on it and thinking about it. So it's kind of fun with interactive time-based media. You can't like give people like literally the whole picture, boom, like that. But I still want it to be like fairly accessible for people to get that surface layer, right? For people to get that surface layer. And then, over time, people can uncover the different layers of the artwork and, and spend a lot of time ruminating on the ideas. I think that's what an artwork is supposed to do.
Leo, you gonna make another shot here, man? Or are you?
That's a good question. Yeah, I do want to just comment on the visuals. Like I said it before, but I truly believe like I feel this very peaceful vibe in this environment. It's almost it's just relaxing, like almost like a therapy kind of. This low poly is like just very. It's all very chilled out, and the way the grass sways and I don't know, everything about it. It seems very I don't know. I'm at peace right now, Adam. It's kind of neat.
As the players probably were back then.
That's like Mitchell would have to comment on that, but it's like this. I don't know if it's just because we look at it as like old, or it's like when I watch, I don't know, Sense and Sensibility or something like that, right? Where you're seeing this layer where you fall in love with the layer, but then immediately when you peel it back and there's all these social things going on underneath, you're like, oh my God, these women are witches, or oh my God, this is like, you get the depths of the society, right? Which is like a whole other thing.
Well, it's those layers, right? It's how like, etiquette, and exclusivity work. Yeah, you wrap everything in this perfect layer. And I love that you said that, Leo, because one of the things that you can do when game mechanics are your medium, is you can sort of like, I want people to feel that comfiness, to be sort of like lulled into a sense of security by the aesthetics and the environment, but also like the game design. Like it's a very simple game, right? You you click, you drag, you shoot, and you can just kind of like get wrapped up in that like mechanic. And like that's a tool that gets used elsewhere in our lives, right? You give people simple, comfy mechanics to disguise other stuff that is going on. So when I was beta testing this with people, I would get like, you know, a lot of people who would just like, who missed all of like the deeper layers of the piece, right? Never saw the visual cues that are like kind of subtly hidden in there, clicked through the dialogue and the story and stuff because they just like, you know, they just want to play the game. The game's comfy, whatever. And like, I've been an artist long enough and I'm secure enough that like, that is great with me. If people can just engage with this superficial layer of this artwork and not go into the deeper levels, like I have done my job, because like that is that like that's actually kind of part of the art. I hate it. It can sometimes be such a cop-out for artists to say like, oh, well, not getting it is like a part of the art. Okay, 99% of people who say that are scamming you, okay? But in this case, it's like, again, like, you know, I'm very confident, like I know those other layers are in there and that they are legible. And so if you can just skim the top of it, it means that this game, this artwork has succeeded in creating that same lull of security, of comfiness that is created in like the society that it and culture that it depicts.
Right.
Interesting.
Maybe the same kind of one that either would make you comfortable choosing to depict croquet players at that time in history, or maybe even choosing that purposefully as a commentary, right? I think you mentioned the conspicuousness of, you know, the Civil War had just ended, and then you have this piece depicting croquet players. And I think a lot of his work after that is he kind of goes on vacations and paints a bunch of people doing leisure activities. And it kind of stands out in contrast to kind of what's going on around. And I guess just tying that back in to the choice of work that you're interfacing with, right? It's sort of, it sort of shows that layer that you're talking about there.
Yeah. Okay. So Receipt did his homework on the life and career of Winslow Homer.
Now we're getting into like the heavy layers.
Yeah. So it's coming back to, that was an artist who seems to have made a deliberate choice, to sort of like to, you know, paint that sense of that sense of security, curiously. And so we're back talking about, you know, the paintings of Winslow Homer in the late 19th century after the Civil War, right? And, you know, Receipt is absolutely right. After his work in the Civil War, he does return to those themes, and he's actually considered, I mean, he's considered a very important painter in American history, not just for the paintings that he did during the Civil War, but he did create provocative and sympathetic, very human depictions of Reconstruction era America. But when he wasn't doing that, and by the way, it's fine to not want to deal with the heavy stuff all the time in all of your artwork when like that is your job and your livelihood. But like Receipt's absolutely right. He went on vacations, he enjoyed painting seascapes and whatever. But curiously, he would often like deny any deeper reading into those pieces. And there was a wonderful essay about this in Art Forum a few months ago. And this essay was published on the occasion of Winslow Homer just had a major retrospective at the Metropolitan Museum. And it talked about some of his most famous paintings that would depict, you know, African Americans in seascapes and whatnot. And Homer, the artist, he would vehemently deny the possibility of a political reading of those. He'd say, no, I'm just painting a seascape. And which raises the question of like, can you do that? I don't know if you can do that. And now, for those of you who are listening in, I have a cat on my keyboard.
So many layers to this. Mitch, I have another question. So, through this artwork, you have kind of the slavery in the background, and you have this like misogynistic or dialogue that happens between the men and the men who are playing the croquet game. As a modern day artist, we know you can't kind of create this kind of representation today. How do you navigate that, knowing that where we sit today, with equal rights, which is well deserved, trying to create this which represents something that doesn't exist today? Is that something you take into account, and how does an artist navigate that kind of ideology?
Well, I'm trying to, like, I'm depicting this moment that existed 150 years ago. And it's funny, I'm actually, I think, trying to deflate some of the like really self-congratulatory language that happens whenever, you know, we do these like really symbolic but ultimately meaningless things, right? And actually, I shouldn't even say like that, because it's an open question as to how meaningful symbolic things are. I think that sometimes when we do these symbolic things, they can be catalysts for meaningful change, sometimes not. I don't really have, like, I think it'd be wrong to have a black and white opinion on that. But it's like, this is a scene of, you know, that theoretically depicts inclusivity, right? Men and women are on this playing field. This was, you know, one of the very few instances where that could happen, where women were invited to play with the boys, right? And but one of the things that I want to talk about is stuff that is still true today, which is that, you know, just inviting somebody onto the playing field, like, doesn't mean that you've invited them into the real game. Right. And so it's like, one of the nice things about working in period specific like aesthetics and narrative is that you can be like pretty kind of like in your face about that, and then people can draw their own conclusions about ways that may be true today that are more subtle. So, you know, I even, you know, like, I have a little bit of fun with it as you play through these games. Like, these men who are in the game, like, they're you know, I try to put some comedy in it. Like, they are kind of hilariously like chauvinistic and self-absorbed, right? There's like they're hugely insensitive, and you know,
but for the time, very progressive.
Oh yeah, yeah. And in this game, they're constantly congratulating themselves for how progressive they are. Right? Like, they're constantly congratulating themselves for how progressive they are. And in reality, like, they're absolute chauvinists, right? And elitists. And so, like, that's just like, again, that medicine that you want to give, sometimes it's a lot more effective to wrap that up in something that seems like period specific to a long time ago,
yeah.
You know?
Rather than today, right? I mean, it's so, it is completely, you just see the parallels, right? Where we're so smart, we're so aware today, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to look that far in the past to think people they thought they were amazing and doing incredible things, and we look back now and like, wow, it's clear as day in hindsight. And yeah, it's just, you just think, wow, the mistakes we can't see ourselves making right now.
Yeah. I would even tie this to very recent history. Sorry if I get too direct with some.
No, love it.
On the, actually, you know, midterms just happened recently, and actually on the ballot for I believe 5 states, and 4 states decided to outlaw it. Just recently, actually, prison slave labor was banned in 4 states. That actually passed in the United States. That was, I'll just be factual here. I think I wrote them down just to make sure.
Wow.
It's Alabama, Tennessee, Vermont, and Oregon. And actually, if you know, the 13th Amendment has that, you know, there's this whole commentary here. We're couched in this setting with this piece, but you know, the 13th Amendment has the except for folks who've committed a crime.
Right.
In prison. So, well, that actually just recently changed on the books. I'm just pointing out that recently changed on the books in 4 states explicitly. Just now, right? Some of these results are coming in this morning. So some of this stuff very much tied to today. Just pointing that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's insane. Like, it's insane that stuff that happens in a painting of Croquet 150 years ago. We still haven't fixed it. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good research there, bro. Yeah, I guess at our core, we're humans and we are always getting better, I guess is the way you'd phrase it. That's amazing. But I love how you're saying that, yeah, by looking, it's easier to examine somebody in the past and see their flaws in the past than it is to look at our own flaws. That's for sure.
Yeah. And, I'm not like a big, you guys know, I'm not a big like yelling at people on Twitter person. I think can often be, more effective, to express yourself in more subtle ways. I think sometimes the indirect approach is more effective.
100%.
Yeah, maybe you could do a little.
Sorry, go ahead, Leo. I cut you.
No, go for it.
I was just reading the how'd you come up with these names of the people?
Oh man, I don't know how much I should go there. I would say no. So okay, all right. So first of all, I tried to have period specific names, like what were people actually named in 1865. But I think that if you look at the names, yeah, maybe I won't like totally spell it out. But if you look at the names, I think there's actually some suggestion about. If you look at the names and the opinions that they express in the dialogue, I think you'll find there's some relation to like some other themes that I'm trying to deal with in the artwork.
So as I'm looking at this, you could see there's a ton of detail, and there's so many layers to this from a theoretical perspective to the actual gameplay. How long did it take you to create this from theorizing it comparative to actually technically building it through the code?
Well, tricky question. Like easy answer is I started I start building I don't want to say the engine because that's a specific term, but I start building the skeleton, the framework for this thing. I actually start in 2020, right? Like before NFTs are taking off, I know that, game engines are going to be my medium of choice. So I start messing around with it back then. Obviously, NFTs kind of take off. This project gets put on the shelf for a little bit as I'm, making the Lewitt generators for art blocks, as I'm touring and promoting digital zones. And then I get back into it sort of at the beginning of 2022 to create the Beggar's Belief demo. And so creating the Beggar's Belief demo was probably about 5 months. And the first 2 months of that are really just building the visual style, right? Like when I'm like what you're seeing here, I want everything to have a really unique signature aesthetic. Like I want people to look at this and be like, this does not look like, a Blender tutorial. This does not look like a sort of like generic low poly art that people see. So like all these shaders, like, I've created or customized all the textures that you see, like I drew by hand and like imported them into the shaders. So then I would spend like 4 months building the Beggar's Belief demo. But by doing that, I had a lot of the infrastructure that I was going to need to like build out every other episode like of this series, right? Every other artwork can be built on that infrastructure. So then after I had that, it was about like 5 months to build out Winslow Homer's Croquet Challenge that we're playing here.
Yeah, not your average PFP project.
No, it's not your average PFP project.
We're literally inside the art. It's like I'm inside. Like we went from not being able to see the art to now we're literally living inside of Mitchell's art. Like,
Well, I love, so this is, one of the things I've been writing down, little essays to post about this, and like the aesthetics, which I was just talking about, are super important to me. And I was always wondering, like people who know me mostly through digital zones, right? The invisible NFT artwork. I was like, what are they going to think? I was like, do they know that in like every other art project I've done in my life besides digital zones, I really, really, really care about aesthetics and like want things to look really good.
So what is this art style? Is there a name for it? The visual presentation. It looks similar to another NFT artist that's kind of popular. I think his name's Grant Noan. It looks very similar to that.
I think no, like I wanted this all to be completely like I wanted to be unique and definitively like my style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this was I know that Grant refers to his style as neo-precisionism, and I can say that this is definitely not that, right? Like he creates his art. These are he creates flat vector-based graphics. These are 3D environments. One of here's the biggest challenge, right? Is like I want to create a distinct signature style where like every single object in here will carry a trace of like my hand and my intention. But but okay, so that's cool. That's a good thing to want to do. That's a really difficult thing to do whenever you are like just creating flat art, it's like the difficult thing to do, like when you're just creating like, textures, shaders that are going to be like rendered and output as a static image. Right. But it's a really, really difficult thing to do when you put those in an environment that you want any web browser to be able to render. OK, and you want the user to be able to move the camera around anywhere they want. OK, so I don't know if this style has a name right now. I don't know. Right now, it's just Mitchell Chanism. I can tell you a little bit about I can tell you a little bit about everything that you're seeing. Right. So let's start like top down. You're seeing that sky in the background. Because again, I wanted this to have a reference to, the original Homer Winslow painting. And he paints these lovely, like these are sort of proto-impressionist clouds. So I took a whole bunch of Homer Winslow paintings and I stitched them together like in Photoshop. I just got rid of all of the stuff I didn't need, like people and houses and stuff like that. I just sketched together, but I stitched together a bunch of skyscapes, and I made this like a Homer. These are actual Homer Winslow paintings, skyscapes, right? And then if you look at the character in our foreground, like you'll see, it's like primarily after I started by building like my own shader, and I'll usually start by building my own stuff from scratch, just so that I am developing a style from a clean slate. And then I usually acknowledge the fact that like I am not a brilliant coder. And like, let me just say that again, it's not false modesty. I'm not a brilliant coder. I can hack stuff together and get it to work in the ways that I think are interesting. And then I usually need grownups to help me make that stuff robust, right? So the way that this character looks right now, I'd start off creating some sketches just from scratch. And then I would find, some other code, open license stuff that I could modify and hack to kind of look like the style that I developed independently. And you see that like if you look at their dresses, right, and even if you look at their faces, they have these like kind of brush strokes on them, right? They look like brush strokes on canvas. So I would just draw those by hand and then like apply them to be textures on the piece. So the trees in the background, those leaves that you see that should just like look like dabs of paint, like that is an actual digital painting that I made, and I applied those as the materials for the trees.
When you say shader, because I don't know what that is.
Oh, sure.
So I know people listening definitely don't know what it is as well. What's you say you built your own shader? What does that mean?
Okay, so here's the deal. Like the shader is the bit of code that tells your renderer, whether it's like your web browser or your game engine on your PlayStation or whatever, how a 3D object should actually look. I think everybody can see in their head a 3D model as like, a bunch of points and triangles connected by lines, and you have like a wireframe model of how something should look. So I'm holding up a mug right now, and you can imagine a wireframe version of this mug. But then a computer needs to know, all right, how does light bounce off this mug? All right, what color, like when light hits this, what color does it see? Does the light bounce off of it? Is there like a little pattern, like a decal on the front? Like on this mug, there's a letter M on it, right? And that obviously is not going to be included in the 3D model. So a shader is a bit of code that says, all right, you know that I have this object that's the shape of a mug, but this is how it should actually look, like when light's bouncing off it and it's hitting someone's eye or the screen, as it were, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, as I'm approaching the entire Beggar's Belief series and wanting it to look really good and wanting it to have a signature look, I decide like this is really where I have to start building it. I have to build out the aesthetic style. And the most important thing for me is not going to be building the models because, you know, if I'm modeling a mug, look, honestly, there's not that many ways to model a mug. Most people's mugs are going to be about the same shape. All right. It's just like, you know, when a, you know, if an impressionist paints a teacup versus a Renaissance painter, all right, they all have more or less the same shape. It's the style, right? How they apply the paint that gives the artist their signature style. And I think that in digital painting, the way that you have style is to code out, you know, what happens when light hits your model.
So for those who are kind of listening and not looking at it, it's almost like a, I don't know how you describe it. It's kind of like a pastel kind of look to it almost. I don't know. For the unart initiated, it's kind of like it's how I would describe it in my, you know, my monkey brain goes to just like a soft kind of style, but I don't know.
Yeah, Adam, we call that the uncultured.
The uncultured, yeah.
You're out of the croquet game, Adam.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
I'm more in the lawn dart game. But we're gonna see if Leo can hit this shot, man. Leo's been lining up this shot for an hour.
Okay, line it up.
All right, hang on.
You're now up to bat.
All right, he's lining it up. It's a long
my God.
shot. It's a long shot, but there's no obstacles. So I'll pull it
Oh.
right back.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
no, he
That
shanked
was
it.
definitely
He
my
It was a bad
definitely not my
finger.
best shot, guys.
All right, do not take Leo to go to golf with you. He's gonna be on the fairway for an hour.
So what's the plan? What's your planned release schedule for the rest of the artworks? Do you have that kind of thought out so far?
Oh yeah, I actually. So I just posted
Oof.
a road
Just
map.
left.
Oh, the road.
Oh, a near miss. I just posted a roadmap for the next 4 artworks that I'll put out after this one. So for my next 5 artworks, really. So this piece is coming out on November 21st, and it's going to be for sale starting on November 29th. And it is part of the exhibition Peer to Peer, which is organized by the Albright-Knox Museum
Just short.
and
I was cheering for it.
Jake's getting into the. Jake's getting into.
I'm into it. I'm into it.
Yeah,
into the game.
this is great. Yeah, the spectators are loving this game. Yeah, so this piece is released November 21st, goes on sale November 29th. It's on sale through the platform Feral File, part of an exhibition organized by the Albright-Knox Museum, curated by Dr. Tina Rivers Ryan. And I'll give a little plug for that exhibition. And this, I think, should be new. By the time this goes live, like as we're recording this, I'm actually like the museum has asked that I not give out the list of artists, but because this is going to go live later, I can tell you who else is in this show, included in this artwork.
Right.
Can I drop that alpha here?
Yeah, absolutely.
These are the other 13 artists in the exhibition, along with this piece that I've made. Rafik Anadol, Laturbo Avedon, myself, Simon Denny, Sophia Crespo, and Philea Khan McCormick, Amir Fala, Oria Harvey, Sarah Friend, Rhea Myers, Osanachi, Casey Rios, Ann Spalter, Ix Shells, and Sarah Zucker. Like, so that's the lineup of this exhibition that I'm releasing with for this, which I'm like super excited about. I think that is like an absolute killer lineup of artists and some real OGs there.
Oh,
So yeah, the roadmap. Yeah, you're
Roadmap.
asking. you couldn't ask for better company to release the first one of these artworks. And then but the next 4 after this are coming out in the summer of 2023. And I posted a little roadmap of like that there's like 4 installments, and they'll be out in May, June, and July of 2023. All 4 of those artworks are going to center around a different sport and be kind of like this in aesthetic and in their approach to digital art, probably different in mechanics and narrative.
Can we change the name from roadmap to field map? Since it's all
Field
around
map.
sports?
Yes, I love that. Actually, I
Boom.
love that. Field map.
Or hey, how
There you
about
go.
playbook? We do the playbook.
Yes, that is
There
the
you go.
playbook.
There you go.
Right. Tricky shot.
That's interesting. And we'll have to have you back on to talk about the I'm interested to know what the other sports are going to be. My mind is already kind of thinking about.
It's gonna be cricket for sure. Gotta be. For
So
sticking with the old name.
cricket is like not I don't even know the rules of cricket. I couldn't do cricket. But I'll say, if you follow the project on Twitter, Beggar's Belief, which is initials_BEBE, you can see the field map or playbook is like the pinned tweet, and there are strong hints as to what the next sports are going to be in the artworks.
Now, based on your reading club, are we going to get any, futuristic football? Is that?
I won't.
Yeah, I won't.
Give it away, positive or either. But yeah, I got to finish that. I got to finish that 17776 reading. I've been busy lately, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Now, as you're selling is this going to be a one-of-one piece, or you're selling a series? A series of these.
Nice shot, Leo. Right. How are we selling this? So this was really important to me. I recognize that most of the other pieces that come after this, those next 4 pieces that come out in the summer, are going to be probably one-of-ones with maybe some other aspect. But for the first one, I really wanted to be able to invite everybody to be a part of this, to kind of like, get into this series of artworks, feel involved in it, feel included. So this piece is going to be a 72-hour open edition for 0.1 ETH. So really low price, let everyone have a part of it. Part of that just has to do with like how my particular like market mechanics have played out over the last couple of years. I've been extremely fortunate to have a group of really passionate collectors collect my work, right? Collecting the Lewitt generators from Art Blocks, and collect the digital zones in particular. And I'm so grateful. Those people really like their digital zones. They really like their IKBs. And the only downside of that is that nobody else can get them. So yeah. I thought it would be really good.
I've described this on Twitter so many times to people, and they're like, okay, so like, where do I go? And they check, and it's just like, it's like 100 ETH or something.
Yeah, they're just so they're so priced out. Again, I'm grateful for it, but I definitely like wanted to make something that that more people could get and more people could participate in. And I really hope that this is an important artwork. I hope that like it continues, some like a path of like innovating, where I'm lucky to have like my beginnings and like the historical NFT like timeline, like time period. So this would be a fun entry point for them, and an accessible one. But finally there was this ideological thing, which was that like, look, this is my first museum commission, and it's a big deal for me. And ultimately, like, it's kind of like it's a gold star that most artists chase for their entire career, right? It's hard to get, it's rare. And I was like, okay, now that I'm here and that I've got it, like, what am I gonna do like with it? And I was like, the coolest thing would be to actually like just let anybody have it, you know, in the sense that like, it's just like, okay, here's this piece, like we did it, like, you know, we got it in a museum exhibition and like, you can have it too. I'm really fortunate in my like physical life, in my physical art collection. I own 2 artworks that have been exhibited in museums. And and it feels cool. Like I can't deny it. I feel like really cool. I bought this one piece, and right after I bought it, the gallery said, we can't give it to you for like 3 months because it's actually got to go to the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Montreal for an exhibition. And I was like, that is so cool. And I love being a part of the story of that artwork. And so I thought that making this an open edition kind of gives us the opportunity to like democratize that feeling, share that feeling.
Very cool.
I applaud you for that. I think that's I absolutely know there are people out there who are going to be really happy to be able to acquire one of your pieces. So
yeah, I'm happy, and I'm on this call. Do you think we'll ever see anybody burn a digital zone?
Well, we have receipt
Other
burner
than the
here.
one we have on this call.
The one and only.
The one and only. We'll see another one.
Yeah.
The only person who ever did it is right here on this call. I don't know. You know what? I could see, I'll tell you why I could see it happening. And actually why it may happen is because like I do, once again, I'm really fortunate that I have like actual, like, I think real relationships and friendships with a lot of the digital zones holders right now. And so I think that like for a lot of them, it being for some people, like I think it being something that we do together, like would be a meaningful thing, like just on like a personal connection level. And so I could actually see it happening like that, like very much in the spirit of like, this is like a ritual that we do. And like, we really are like not flexing, like we're going to do something that's kind of meaningful.
Yeah.
So you have a cult.
I don't. I sadly.
Plus, it's a nice flex,
don't.
so it's both.
Yeah.
So here, let me ask receipt burner. Like, what was your reasoning to burn it, and how do you feel about that? Because there's multiple ways to look at it, right? You kind of like, you could be setting money on fire theoretically, or literally, but then you're also gaining something on the other side. So just, I'm curious of the process and what you thought about it.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to go, I won't give the whole story probably, but maybe an abridged version. But at the time I was, I was researching what are folks doing on blockchain. I was researching a bunch of different ICOs. I was looking around for, hey, what's novel? What's actually happening? I was looking for novel technology, actually. I wasn't looking for art, but I ran across Mitchell's work. I forget where it was, but it was mentioned in some media outlet. And I'm somebody who visits museums. I have museum memberships. I lived in New York for several years. There's some metadata. And when I lived there, yeah, I'm a MoMA member, everything. I really enjoy checking out contemporary art, conceptual pieces. And I hadn't seen anybody do anything on the blockchain that I thought fit the medium really well. And I was kind of blown away when I saw Mitchell's piece. It very perfectly kind of mapped onto that medium, and I kind of had an opportunity to participate in art. So whenever I minted 3 of them that day. Whenever I minted those, I fully intended on burning one of those pieces. I think maybe, and I don't, I'm not, it's not like hindsight 2020 or anything. I don't really believe in that. But when I purchased the pieces, the way I actually thought about it is maybe a little bit of the mentality now is I thought I should have 2 pieces so that I can keep one forever. And I should have one so that I can maybe sell it if anything ever comes of that. But with Mitchell's work, there's also the burning aspect, right? So I wanted to participate in the art. That's why I came. That's why I showed up. So I burnt that piece that day to do that. I was just very excited to have that opportunity. I'd never been able to kind of participate in art that way. I'd always kind of been a spectator going to the gallery or to the museum. So that was very exciting for me. And yeah, I had every intention. I do not regret it at all. I don't think I would have even been involved or purchased any of that work unless I had intended to burn it and I'd been excited about the concept and the art.
Brilliant. What was the day that you burnt it? What was that date?
I burnt it on the same day. That was August 30th in 2017, I believe.
August 30th, 2017.
I don't remember how many minutes off it was. I sent a transaction. I was queuing up a transaction.
It was right away.
As soon as Mitchell, I was watching over video, and as soon as Mitchell said that the contract was open, I'd already prepared the transaction. I sent the transaction to buy 2 of the pieces, and then I burned that piece. I want to say a couple minutes later. I got to see the reaction of everybody on the stream.
It was like, I remember we were so I remember looking looking at the blockchain and being like, man, somebody's already got like failed transactions before I opened the contract for minting. I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Like who? And I was like looking around. I'm looking around the room like, who is this? Who's doing this? Who's trying to because I could not fathom that anyone outside of that room would be paying attention, right? But yeah, and then it was like right away, and I was like, who did that? Like, not that I was mad, I was just like really curious, and but yeah, it was right away. It might show up on the blockchain as August 31st, just because of like UTC, because I think it was like around 8 p.m. in my local Toronto time, which I think would have put it just like after midnight on the 31st UTC.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, burned it right away, and then
to be extremely specific.
Yes.
That's awesome. So just so everybody knows, November 29th, that's when it goes on sale. But the begins being displayed on the 21st, right? That's when the that's when the show begins. Yep,
absolutely. But you saw it here first.
Saw it here first, man. I can't wait to show this. I'm glad actually Leo's been a slow player, so we don't give away too much.
And yeah, so you guys, I mean, consider like whatever you want to leave on the cutting room floor is fine. I mean, because it's all kind of like the whole experience is kind of Easter eggs, right? It's all stuff that you can find or not. Like all that stuff we were talking about, like, dude, it's crazy. Like so many, like I set up beta testers and critics, right? Like where I had like some people, like some fellow artists and curators that I really respected. You know, I asked them to just, play the game, give me critique, give me feedback, right? And it's amazing how many people, there were some people who didn't even notice, right, that chain gang in the background, right? And so it's like, I don't want to say it's an Easter egg because it's like a little bit more obvious than that, but like all this stuff is stuff that like you can notice or not notice. It's fine. Like I think it enriches your experience if you do notice it, but like for reasons that I said before, it's cool if you don't. There were a number of people who didn't ever see or notice that was a frame behind them. And I think like that is so cool. So I don't know if like, you consider that an Easter egg or not. But it's just something that's, supposed to be subtle. So it's just something for people to discover on their own.
Really cool, man. I think Leo put it best that you are you're pushing boundaries again. And although maybe all of us don't get it right now, I have a feeling we're all going to get it in 5 or 10 years from now. And I just keep going back and thinking about my kid playing video games, and he literally lives in video games as I did when I was 15 years old. And I just always appreciate people pushing boundaries of our understanding of ourselves. Is amazing, man. So thanks so much for sharing this with us. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I was like so excited to share with this crew in particular.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm blown away by it. I'm excited to purchase some and finally be a Mitchell Chan collector.
I'm gonna be happy to have you. Welcome to the club.
Boom.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, Mitchell. Unless Leo, do you have anything else to say before we wrap up, man?
Dude, I just wanted to say thank you as well. It's been an honor. I think, being able to be in this immersive piece of art that you've created, it feels like almost a new genre kind of here. I think it's really special. I'm very excited for people to get to experience it,
Well, thank you so much.
Appreciate you, man.